Hi there, welcome to the very first edition of Art Scene here on TAPAC TV. My name's Greg Ward and we'll be bringing you interviews with luminaries here in the New Zealand art scene, including choreographers, directors, producers, writers, actors and members of our production fraternity. Tonight we bring you one of the rising stars in the New Zealand theatre scene. Renae Maihi has been writing and directing for many years, and her play Patua has just won the Best Maori Play in the Adam New Zealand Play Awards for 2013. The play opens here at TAPAC on May the 15th, 2013, and we're looking forward very much to having a conversation with her around her style and her thoughts for the future. Welcome to Art Scene. This is the first of our interviews with writer-director Renae Maihi. We're talking about her play Patua, which opens here at TAPAC Theatre on the 15th of May 2013. Renae, it's fabulous to have you here in the theatre, and I know you've had a prolific career and had some great critical success. I'd like to take you right back to the beginning and ask you initially, what drove you into acting?
Well, thank you for having me here, Greg, and thank you to TAPAC. What drove me into acting? I always was a performer. My family are performers. My father, there's 13 of them altogether. They were all musicians. Everyone in my family, plays drums, bass, guitar. So we were quite a performance family. And then I did a lot of kapaka on stage growing up. And then when I was about 5, I wound up in a little play at school. And I thought, oh, this is cool, this is fun. And so, just started doing, kids theatre and had a lot of inspirational people around me. But it was mainly kapaka. And I just really enjoyed that feeling of being with an ensemble and a group of people on stage, entertaining people. And so I went into drama school, and but that's the reason why I started in the first place.
So where did you train?
I actually went to Te Wānanga o Aotearoa, and it was at a time when they were offering a Bachelor of Māori Performing Arts. And they had drama, dance and music. And in this Bachelor of Performing Arts, they had headhunted some of the greatest teachers. Like we had Vadim Ledogorov, who is an amazing Russian actor and director, and Moss Patterson, who's a choreographer and also a dancer and runs Atamita Dance Company. And we had James Beaumont come through, who was also a playwright and a director. And so I just very quickly fell in love with drama and dance. But I selected drama in the end, and I learnt so much in those 3 years about craft and execution and all the stuff that goes into making story. Yeah.
So you obviously had a great deal of influences. At what point did you realise that you were also a writer?
I've always actually been a writer. I started writing poems, I think, when I was probably about 6 or 7. I wouldn't say that I had the easiest upbringing, and so it forces you, I guess, into a space where you need to just let some things out and let things go. And so I wound up, writing poems, writing poetry. And actually just the other day, I was going through a whole bunch of all my stuff, and I found a short story that I'd written when I was 14. And I read it back and I was like, wow, I can't believe that this is my words when I was 14. And, I just, always loved writing. And so naturally, when you're a part of theatre, and you're participating in it, you start thinking about story, and that's really what happened, and that's what sparked me on to write Ngā Manurere. Yeah, and also the fact that I was a solo mother and felt at times people misunderstood, solo mothers put us all into one single box, and with all the friends that I have who, it's really courageous actually. It's quite difficult raising a child on your own, and I really wanted to tell their stories and my story, so just started writing, yeah.
Well, that's a really good segue into my next question, which is what influences you? Who influences you?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely, I mean, my life experience, you know, sometimes you go, oh, why was it so hard? You know, why was life so hard at times? But I think it's like when you temper steel, you know, you put it through extreme heat and then you put it through extreme cold, you put it through the extremities, and then what comes out is something that is strong. And so I often think about that when, you know, particularly in my earlier 20s, I'd go, oh, why has life been so challenging for me, you know? And I'm actually really grateful for that now as a, you know, as a 30-year-old. I'm grateful that I had those extreme experiences, because it allows me to tell story from a really true place and from a place of experience. And so I think that's really important. You know, people can sense when something's not real or it's not told from a real voice. So definitely my experiences in life influenced me, and other people's works, of course, you know, reading, watching film. I love watching film. At one point I was watching probably about 5 to 10 films a week. In the weekends it was ridiculous, but yeah, and I was a huge reader actually when I was young, and I always say this to writers, you know, if you want to be a good writer, you have to be, you have to demolish books, you have to read. So life, other people's work and moments influence me.
Now, you had the opportunity to work on co-creation of the short film Redemption, which had some significant critical success. What was that process like for you, and how did it inform you or affect your work?
It was actually really good. So I wound up working with Katie Wolf and Tim Balm, because Katie had directed my first play, Ngā Manurere, and it was really good to move into you know, working on film, because I've always had a huge interest in working on film, and have, you know, someone like Tim Balm teach me the ropes about how to write. Also, that experience really, it really inspired me and drove me to want to start directing film. And so then, you know, I think the following year I went on and put something in for Fresh Shorts and with the New Zealand Film Commission, and I was really stoked. I was successful and got the funding, and yep, so that film Butterfly should come out this year. But yeah, working on Redemption was definitely the beginning of an interest in film.
Seeing as how the film was selected for the 27th Sundance Festival, being international, has that led onto any international offers for you?
Oh, I think, you know, really in film, it's a little bit different to theatre. The theatre is really quite a lot about the playwright and the, you know, director combination as well. But in film, it's really about the director. So that was Katie's film, you know. Though of course it looks good on the CV. Anyway, so. Yeah, and it was just really great to be a part of that process, and yeah, I think that was Katie's film, yeah.
So the play Patua opens on the 15th of May here at TAPAC. How did you come about writing this piece? What was the genesis of the work?
Oh, thank you for asking that question actually, because it's an important question to me. So Patua, a verb to strike, hit, beat, kill, subdue, ill-treat. This idea has been in the making since I was 12 years old. I'll never forget Dalcelia Whittaker. She was only 2 years old, and she was killed. She was tortured. And I'll never forget watching a documentary about this as a young girl, thinking, how could these people do this to this little girl in, you know, the neighbourhood which I grew up in South Auckland? And it troubled me for many years. And then I was fortunate enough to get funding through Creative New Zealand to write my next play after Ngā Manurere had been reasonably, you know, successful. And I initially had submitted a different kaupapa or idea altogether, but it wasn't working. It wasn't right. This idea was not working. And finally you just have to admit defeat to a higher source, because that's not the story that wanted to be told. And in that incredibly difficult period of time with me trying to find out what the story is going to be about, I remembered this little girl, and something else had come in the media about Nia Glassy again as well, and then from there, you know, it's amazing when it's like puzzle pieces just the dots start connecting for you when you're in this moment of creating, and true inspiration, because you know, to be inspired is to take something in. And it just occurred to me, this is the story that I want to write, because I need to write this for those kids. And I felt like as a young girl, I had made a promise to that little girl somehow. And I know it sounds quite intense, but to do what I can, you know, so that her death wasn't in vain. And so yeah, this piece is really important to me. And I think important to all of us, because, I mean, it's something that we really need to look at, because this can't keep happening. So that's where the idea of Patua came from.
So how long was it, in actuality, from the creation of the work itself to when we see it here on stage?
Well, so when I really started writing it, i.e. when I found this story, I worked quite intensively, actually. You know, there are artists or writers who are really steady, and I really admire people like that. I'm basically all or nothing. So I sat down and I wrote the first draft in 10 days, non-stop. And I just did not really come up for air. And my son, actually, he's seen me write a few plays and things, and then he'll walk past and be like, "Are you okay, Mum? Are you crying? Or what are you laughing about?" But anyway, so I go into a really intense state. But yeah, I've managed actually to turn this over from the first draft to funding from Creative New Zealand to production quite quickly. But I set myself goals like that to go, okay, right, you need to get this up within the next year, because I had a break, you know, after Ngā Manurere, and I'd done some writing on television. I'd, you know, written this film, made this other film, short, and I had burnt myself out at one point, and I hadn't offered any work for a while, so I was starting to feel like I've really just got to make sure that I get this work out. So it wasn't actually, yeah, it wasn't a drawn out process once the idea came. Yeah, it was just finding that idea initially.
Your previous work, Ngā Manurere, was a piece that developed over a number of seasons. Is Patua in the same vein?
With Patua, this development season is, the kaupapa for this season is to show people what this story is about, to create, you know, some interest in it, but ultimately it's to get it ready to go on tour. So we need to, I'd like to take Patua into communities through our Aotearoa, and, you know, to at-risk communities or communities who feel that they need to see this play. So with Blanket and Musket Productions, who's producing this, this development season, our focus is to make a tour-ready production, which means that if we need to pack everything up and put it into a trailer, we can do that. So will it go through development again? once we put it into the, a new space, we have to adjust. But that's the cool thing about theatre is that it's a living organism. It's constantly evolving and changing from night to night, from show to show. So I think a play is always in development.
The play is a very powerful work, and as art mirrors life, was this an overt attempt to engender societal change with art?
Yes, absolutely. It's both of those things. I think we make story or art. Sure, we make it to entertain, but I make it to say something as well. And as I was saying before, this is just not good enough. It's not good enough, and definitely, when I sat down with my producer, Hiona Hinari, I said, this is, for me, this is not just a play. Patua is a movement, and I want to take that movement in the form of story throughout Aotearoa, because sometimes when you see yourself, you actually really see yourself. And years ago, actually, I did a play as an actor with James Beaumont directing called Verbatim, and we toured into youth prisons. And it was a play written by Miranda Harcourt based on interviews with murderers and families of the victims. So we took this play into youth prisons, and we did it actually in front of one of the New Zealand's youngest serial killer. The children at first were rowdy. Within 2 minutes, they'd quietened down. They watched that play. By the end of it, one of the girls she was weeping actually, and she couldn't come near me because I reminded her of her mother. And I think it was one of the first times that she could really see her mother and her life for what it was. And so I think story has a very powerful place in the world to be able to do that. And I would like to hope that there are people who see this play and are motivated to address issues within themselves, maybe, people that they know, people in their community. So, yeah, absolutely, it's about motivating change, and also the way that you motivate change is by showing everyone what it looks like, what we look like.
Now, you've had a prolific career, and I wonder if you can share with our viewers 3 elements that informed you throughout your career and that perhaps will help our viewers in their careers.
Yep, I can. 1, in order to make great art, and this is what Annette Bening, who's an actor, said, you have to be obsessed. Only with that intensity of obsession can you create something that resonates. And I truly believe that, and I know I experience it myself when I get into those states and modes. 2nd, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something, because they're not on your journey, you're on your journey. So walk your journey. Don't listen to that. 3, stories are everywhere in the world. Stories are around us. Notice them. That's it. Yeah.
Fabulous. Renae, thank you very much indeed for coming and joining with us here at TAPAC for this, the inaugural interview of our Art Scene program. Certainly wish you all the very best for your run, which starts on May the 15th, 2013, and I look forward to seeing the play from a position in the seats here in the theatre.
Thank you so much. It's been nice talking with you.